Thank you very much. I will concentrate on security issues which are defining to a large extent Chinese actions in this strategic area, which have great importance for the Chinese policies. So, what is at stake for China in this South China Sea situation? Why are these small islands with questionable economic importance are so important for the Chinese policies? There are a number of separate issues which make South China Sea and the South China Sea islands critically important for China's national security. The importance of this area can be compared to importance of the Black Sea area and Black Sea Straits to Russian Empire prior to World War I. And to a large extent, these problems are defining the whole Chinese foreign policy. First of all, China needs to protect the vital sea lanes of communications and protect itself from any possibility of blockade conducted by any other country or by disruption of critical shipping lanes. At the same time, these very shipping lanes are critically important to some of the Chinese regional adversaries and allies of the major Chinese global rival, United States. So the military superiority in this area allows to inflict heavy costs on economies of a number of American allies and on economy of United States himself. Third issue is the ongoing emergence of credible Chinese sea-based nuclear deterrent force. This is a huge project which can be compared to any of the major Chinese projects of industrial development. It costs incredible amount of money. A lot has been already invested, much more will be invested. They need the sea, otherwise they have no credible sea-based nuclear deterrent force. Second, the military superiority in this area is necessary to implement anti-access strategy, which is important for Chinese ability to act in any possible local conflict in the Western Pacific. And third, there are political implications. If Chinese reach their maximum goals in the area, the balancing games in the security, any balancing games between China and United States become not very promising for the ASEAN states. U.S. ability to intervene becomes very questionable, and we can witness again the situation which existed basically in pre-colonial times, when there is one big China which is setting the rules and a number of smaller states. Of course, this might happen in extreme case if Chinese reach all of the goals. First, let us talk about Malacca dilemma, like former Chinese President Hu Jintao called this. The Chinese were meaning that they are so much dependent on Malacca Straits and have absolutely no influence on it. They don't have any power projection capability into this area, and still most of their oil import is coming through that, but also all of the other major economies in the area are highly dependent on this area. To understand how much this defines Chinese foreign policy, we should look at the Chinese diversification strategy. Huge investment is being made into pipelines to Central Asia, to Russia, into energy corridors via Burma, into some projects in Pakistan, exactly to overcome this vulnerability. This is very much one of the main dimensions of the Chinese foreign policy. They feel this vulnerability very deeply, and they're doing everything possible to overcome this. How they can overcome this vulnerability by increasing their control over South China Sea and increasing their presence on the disputed islands. Strong military infrastructure on Spratly increases the ability of Chinese Navy to operate into the southern part of South China Sea, bringing the straits into the range of the Chinese weapon systems, allows them to blockade the straits in case if straits is closed for them. As a result, if the Chinese are reaching their goals, yes, of course, it is technically possible to close the vital shipping lanes for them, but the costs will multiply for any side which chooses to use that as a method of pressuring China. If anyone tries to do that, the economic costs for the whole region would be absolutely disastrous. The military losses are also likely to be huge. There used to be discussions in the American academic press among military specialists about possibility of implementing blockade. But you know, some people considered this as a kind of low-cost option compared to direct intervention into a situation when China is fighting against Taiwan or something. But this will not be a low-cost option anymore. That would be something absolutely comparable with full-scale military conflict with huge costs and implications. So, to a certain extent, China can solve this dilemma by increasing military presence in this area. What we can say about nuclear deterrent force? First of all, we need to understand that this is ongoing investment project which costs many dozens of billions of dollars. Currently, they're finishing to build the first line of 5 nuclear ballistic missile submarines. We don't know their cost, but typically nuclear ballistic missile submarines is something above $2 billion, even in the developed nations, maybe a little bit less in China. The infrastructure is huge, and Chinese are building it from scratch. It's not like Western countries and Russia, which are relying on Cold War era infrastructure, and they built this huge Yulin base on Hainan Island with underground facilities, full infrastructure. It's a very big project. It can be compared to any big development project or to human space projects, which are so much, well known for the public. They're expanding missile industry, expanding the whole industrial capacity associated with building solid fuel missiles, and this is also going on right now. And they are continuing to invest into new missile system because, as it is known, they managed to overcome critical difficulties with Julian-2 missile by 2012. It became combat ready last year. This year, Americans are expecting the first Jin-class submarine combat control to happen. And what is important to understand, the Chinese nuclear submarine technology is backward compared to Western one and to Russian one. When you have backward nuclear ballistic missile submarine, your solution is to do what the Soviets did many years ago, creating so-called bastion. Bastion is a heavily defended area of the sea where nuclear submarines can operate in relative security. Which requires a lot of infrastructure, protection forces, etc. The only area where they can establish this bastion is exactly South China Sea, and this is the area where it is being constructed. They are expanding their anti-submarine force at huge pace, like building this huge number of Type 56 corvettes, anti-submarine ships, and they are expanding infrastructure and facilities on all of the islands, including fixed hydrophone arrays, which they are developing quite actively, and they are building them in the area. This will have another major implication. After the submarine patrols start and Bastion is built, Bastion partly consists of facilities on disputed islands. Attack on Bastion element can be mistook by the Chinese as an attack which precedes attempt to disable their SSBNs, and that can cause very dramatic consequences. So, as a result, the situation can have very deep implications for global security. If anyone tries to deal with Chinese installation on one of the disputed islands in future. So this is another project, like the whole dimension, which costs a lot, and this is one of the reasons why Chinese will do anything to protect their positions in this area, and they basically have no other option, because they made all of the decisions on expanding their nuclear force back in 1990s. That was their response to expanding U.S. ballistic missile capability, expanded U.S. Precision strike capability. They cannot go back on that, actually. So what is happening now? The Chinese Navy, especially in South China Sea, is growing at such pace that, in fact, yes, the other regional countries are trying to compete, but it's not really possible. It's not really possible because China is closing technological gap with other major defense industry centers. Previously, you could buy a limited number of really advanced weapon systems from the West or from Russia, and you would you would feel yourself quite protected. Now it's not possible. Yes, what you can buy from the West or Russia is slightly better, maybe, but still it belongs to the same generation as the Chinese systems. And Chinese are producing them at very high speed. And also increased Chinese capability Chinese are increasing capability to prevent U.S. Navy movement. And of course, U.S. is trying to react to that, but they're always several steps behind, because they're involved into situations in so many other places of the world. They have budgetary limitations and so on. So in the more distant future, we'll see that there will be no effective counterbalance to China in military and security area. And at this point, there will be possibly no other option, like in the remote future, for the regional countries, but to come to compromise with China more or less on Chinese terms. And so what they are doing, they're deploying their forces in the region, new cruise missile, anti-ship ballistic missile, strong naval expansion, special platforms for this theater, exactly like large hydroplane, expanding islands, creating all of the infrastructure, and dealing with regional countries on individual basis, using stick and carrot approach, and basically it's succeeding in undermining their unity. So basically their strategy is bringing fruits, they're successful. Quickly about Russia's position, Russia is trying to be invisible on this issue because in spite of our strategic partnership with China, we are selling more weapons to Vietnam than to China now, and we are just basically calling on everyone to exercise restraint, be peaceful, etc. But if something happens, we'll try not to get involved, because the best way to deal with such conflicts is to be invisible and not to get involved, if you can do that. So the key points is, first, we shouldn't underestimate the Chinese resolve. It's critically important for them. Like I said, the best historical example is Black Sea and Black Sea Straits for the Russian Empire, which defined the foreign policy of the Russian Empire for much of the 19th, early 20th century. The Chinese are pretty successful in their strategy. I don't think they're seriously going to take everything they claim. They have some goal, which is mostly defined by some very technical and military stuff, which will allow them to be absolutely superior naval power in this exact area, and they don't actually need anything more. And they're gradually approaching this goal. And I don't think there is any way to stop this, and Russia will do its best to stay away from this situation. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.